we'll call this meeting to order, the March 6th Special Planning Commission meeting. Oh, it looks like, is that Maria? We're all here. So as part of the call to order, since everyone here is remote except for Mike and I, let's go through and let folks put themselves on the record.
I'll jump in. This is Tim Sinnott, Planning Commissioner.
Sean Linehan, Planning Commissioner.
Leah Candlin, Planning Commissioner.
Maria Arsenelis, Planning Commissioner.
Gabe Wagenaus, Planning Commissioner.
Rowan, are you here? Or no? Sure. Oh, she is. Okay. She's having a hard time. Okay. Rowan, if you get a chance and you're able to unmute yourself, just say hi real quick, but we'll move on. Next is the approval of the agenda. If anyone has any requested changes, let me know. Otherwise, I'd ask for unanimous consent to pass the agenda, to approve the agenda.
Hi, everyone.
None.
Sorry, did everyone introduce themselves? I was having audio issues. Should I introduce myself? Apologies.
Sure, please do.
Great. Rowan Hawthorne, Planning Commissioner. Thank you. Sorry again.
Says I've heard nobody has any suggested changes. The agenda is approved. Next is comments from the commission. I suggest that we don't have any comments, but if anybody does, let me know. No, the only comment that I'll give is I just want to thank everybody for showing up to this meeting. I know that I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So hopefully we can do this very quickly. But again, just thanks for logging on today when you could be doing other things. Next is general business. This is comments from the public about something not on the agenda. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to make any comments? There's nobody here in the conference room with us, but we have a number of folks online. So looks like Stan Brinkerhoff has raised his hand.
Yes, just curious, who is present in the room? I didn't hear kind of names in the room.
I'm sorry, it's just Aaron Kasicki, Planning Commissioner, and Mike Miller, Planning Director.
Thanks much.
Folks, my hand is not going up.
Go for it, Alan.
I was going to say, Chair and Mike, when you go on the link on the agenda page, it's not blued, so you can't click on it. You have to cut and paste it into the address bar. And so I just wanted you to know that I know how to do it, but a lot of folks may not know how to do that. So when I go on the agenda, page, it's
done right next time.
Oh, okay, so just maybe mention to folks if they, that's how they need to get on, please.
Okay, let's move on to the meat of today's meeting, which is review and consider developer responses to the Country Club Road P4D. Everyone here has looked at the proposals and gotten a lot of good feedback from folks. I want to thank everybody who has provided some feedback in written form. I apologize. I tried to start to draft a letter and hopefully it sent it on to you guys about a half an hour ago, but that didn't happen and wasn't able to send it off until about 3 or 4 minutes ago. So that has been sent to you all in email form. I know that it probably isn't enough time to really take a look at it. So if it makes sense for folks, might just want to give folks a couple of minutes just to read it over really quickly. And maybe that could be a starting point for the discussion, if that makes sense. Yes, no.
I was able to give it a quick review already. I think, it's a good place to start. The first part of it, our methodology. I think we're all aware of how we were
Yep.
considering everything. And so it comes down to the questions and comments and recommendations part, which is a quick read.
Or we'd have to maybe be able to read it in.
I'm just getting through it. If you want to give us a couple of minutes, I'm on to the second page, Aaron, if you want to just give me a minute.
Sure. Yeah.
That sounds good. Me too. And I'll just make one note that Aaron is easy to hear and Mike is harder to hear. I don't know if there's an opportunity to shift a microphone or not.
I'm shouting. Mike is whispering.
Okay. Well, maybe Mike was just talking to Aaron.
I'm trying to manage the room, so
That works.
I'm not participating in this one, but we were just trying to get it up so that way folks in the audience would be able to see it. So we were trying to decide whether we would share it. And if it would be mailed to me, maybe I could share it on my screen.
Did I send it to you?
I don't think
Just hold on, let me send it to you real quickly.
looks like Peter has his hand raised.
Yeah.
Hi, Peter. Do you have a comment?
Well, yeah, I would like to see the letter you wrote.
Yep, we're working on that right now.
Okay, thanks.
I'm not.
So I don't know if your screen changes because we've got multiple monitors. So if I do this, do you see my Outlook page or no?
We don't see anything shared from you, Mike.
That's actually helpful. Because now I don't have to worry about what's popping up on my screen.
Yep.
Do you want just the comments?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. So that look good on your screens?
Yes, you could expand it into the full screen, but otherwise it looks great. Thank you.
That does look, there we go. Oh, I know what I have to do.
I know the new Outlook is brutal. There's that hide email panel if you, yeah.
All right, are you seeing it in Word now? All right. I'm going to try to scroll it down a little bit for folks who are reading. Roll down the comments, questions, and recommendations. Yep. Okay. Thought there was some more coming on, but
No, I wish I had more, but I don't. Just as a quick housekeeping issue, I guess not housekeeping issue, just in the methodology section of this letter, it outlines a number of the aspirations and goals that I think that are implicated by this review. And I'm cribbing that from the implementation plan and in the city plan, which is the first strategy is to continue to implement the Country Club Road Actionable Plan, and that implements goals 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, which are all the ones that are listed on there. But the one that is not listed being implicated by the improve the safety, health, and climate and resiliency of our homes. And I know that some of the folks that did some trying to kind of score it with a matrix included that and scored it along those lines. I didn't include that in that list of aspirations and goals because it's not listed in the implementation strategy that I think we would be reviewing this under. So if folks want to include that, improve the safety, health, and climate resiliency of our homes as part of the criteria that we sort of evaluated this stuff under, happy to include it, but I omitted it for a reason. And if that makes sense to folks.
I think there's some value to including the information, but I don't know that it needs to be listed under the criteria. It could more just be listed like in addition to these other things. So kind of in the bottom section, as we're talking about the very specifics of why we've given, have chosen ExecuSuite as our preferred developer, we can also just say, in addition to these, we also saw that they, care a fair bit about climate, safety, health of housing in our view. And that's something we care about too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think with respect to proposal specific feedback, I mean, it's kind of, we could say whatever we want to. I'm just saying in terms of laying out the methodology, like in the great. I just wanted to flag that I didn't include everything that some folks did use when they kind of reviewed it. And we can add that in if we want to, but I think that would be consistent with the implementation strategy that is listed in the city plan. So, but it sounds like there's no real strong opinions about it, unless I'm wrong. Hi, Stan, you got your hand raised?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're taking any feedback from the community at all, are you? Or
I mean, we can, sure.
Real brief and certainly up to the group. The city plan doesn't explicitly call it out because it's probably not appropriate, but I know the country club process had identified trying to not burden the taxpayers with this project. One second. And I know that some of the proposals, the builders or the developers had offered to take the risk of the bond for any development on, and just wanted to offer to the planning commission that, if that's interesting, it may be worth providing that recommendation to council as well, that, as a risk reduction, one or more of the developers had offered to take the bond on themselves. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. And do you off the top of your head, do you remember which developers that was?
they were.
I don't, but I think Mike, you had that list.
Yeah, no, at least executive suite was one. The others are silent. They didn't, I don't think they spoke either way about how they would formulate it, but it's a question that certainly the country club subcommittee will be asking in the interview process for the others that were silent on the issue. Nobody said they wouldn't, but one said they would.
Okay. So after taking, and like, I'll admit that the draft letter is not anywhere near as far along as I'd like to, but I started getting bogged down. So I was trying to synthesize people's feedback as I started to get into the project specific issues. And plus I have a day job. So I think it's just sort of the way I was thinking about structuring this discussion was kind of first sort of seeing if there's general consensus amongst this group about how to rank these proposals. I see some kind of clear patterns emerging from kind of the feedback that I've gotten so far, but to the extent that we can make representations as a group about sort of if we favor one proposal over others, or if we disfavor one, or less, I would say less supportive of other proposals. If we can get that consensus, that'd be helpful as we start to think about how we want to frame up the project specific feedback. So I guess the question to the group is do we all have a sense of kind of a front runner? Do we have some mid-pack folks? It sounds like what I've gotten from the feedback so far is executive suite is the preferred proposal as with respect to the folks that have gotten back to me. Are we comfortable making that representation as a commission, or do we need to have more discussion about that?
I'm comfortable with that.
I'd like to have just a little bit of discussion about it. I had said that both Chinburg and Execu Suite were my top frontrunners. And looking at everybody else's feedback on it, I was a little I wasn't sure that some of it was entirely accurate in the way that Chinburg was presented in terms of like the mix of units. Like obviously Execu Suite has a wide variety of sizes and very eclectic mix. They're drawing from a lot of different suppliers, but that the Chinburg had studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, condos, single family homes, and that there was a mix of income levels that were being targeted for those, as well as market rate. So, that only 5 to 15% of the rentals were targeting 80% AMI, and that only 10% of for sale homes were going for up to 150% of AMI, and the rest, it sounded like, were market rate. I just felt like Chinburg was kind of getting pushed aside in some of these ratings that people had put, and I wasn't sure that it was being presented entirely accurately. But like I said, Execu Suite is also one of my top 2. I just wanted to maybe weigh briefly the two next to each other, since they're almost mirror images in some ways, right? That it's 80-20. One is 80-20 owned, rented. One is 80-20 rented, owned. So depends on what some folks' priorities are.
I mean, my thought, I also was kind of looking back at Sandra's informal sort of housing survey that she did, a while ago. And one of the things that really struck me before, the RFQs and the RFPs came in, 82% of the people that participated in her informal survey said that they want to own their next home, whether it be a standalone house, a duplex, a tiny home, or other structure. So in my notes, I have that Chinburg has kind of the least amount of affordable homes, but I need to dig in and, confirm that. So Chinburg was kind of lower on the list for me, because I was prioritizing affordable housing, and maximizing that aspect of it.
So I feel like I've also come to prefer those two options compared to the DW and Penrose. I'm kind of with Sean here, where I think I, maybe more so than other people, I see the pros and cons of each. And Chinburg, I've spoken many times about how much I love a row home or a townhouse. And they have just like swaths of townhouses, which I think are so practical for people. And it is that step between renting and owning a single family home to me, is like these like more inexpensive types of housing. I didn't see that as, I don't really, an executive suites proposal, I didn't see that type of affordable housing in the mix, but maybe I just didn't look in the right place. It seemed like, and DEW kind of had the same thing, where it's either rental apartments or single family homes. I think attached homes have a lot of benefits. And I was really impressed that Chinburg included them, because it's not really something you see around here. So I would like to go back to looking at both of them and kind of like talking about what we like and don't like about each. I don't know if other people are also like on the fence between them, or if it's just me and Sean.
So let me just throw out, because I think I was the one who put that matrix together, and it's not objective, right? It's like what we each think. This was the way that I viewed it, and I think the issue between having mostly studios and one bedrooms, I think, was part of it, and then you probably got from my comments. I mean, I think we need a lot more market rate just generally. I mean, most of the rental apartments are 120 AMI, which is, maybe it's fine, but all the research shows that having mixed incomes, like, that lifts all the boats, right? And so having all kinds of housing for all kinds of people, that's my personal bias. So I don't have any issues with looking at them side by side, but just to maybe justify why mine were probably the first comments that people saw, and just that's why that was the way it was. It's like, look, we need 3-bedroom apartments. We need a lot of different. We need lots of market rate stuff. We need for sale, maybe more for sale homes. So anyway, that's my personal bias.
Yeah, and I'm not committed to having like the Penrose proposal of having only affordable housing. Like, that did not appeal to me, and it's not. I don't think it's necessary either. I agree with Gabe. Market rate housing at Country Club Road would be fine. A mix is great, but adding 300 units plus out at Country Club Road, no matter what type of unit it is going to have an effect on housing prices in Montpelier. And the more units we add over time, the greater effect that will be. Market rate units at Country Club Road will create affordable units somewhere else with some of our older housing stock.
So, I mean, I didn't want to sort of dive into the weeds real quick on this, but I'm fine if we do that. I was just trying to see if there was any consensus about any of these proposals, so that we could sort of structure our comments in a way that made sense to us. It sounds like that consensus isn't there on the top end. So let me ask it a different way. Are there any proposals that we feel like we should give less attention to because we agree that we have less support for them? Because I think ideally like the best value that we bring to the table again is to find those proposals that we find, do a better job of supporting the city plan's goals, and we can articulate that to the subcommittee and to city council as best we can. And we can certainly give comments on proposals that we don't support as much, but I think that there's going to be greater value in spending our time thinking about the ones that we do support. So it sounds like, so far what I hear is we have Executive Suite, we have Chinburg, we have lesser support for PEDRES and DEW. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I'm just trying to figure out a way to kind of see if there's consensus. And I guess I'll say as an alternative, if there's no consensus across the board, that's fine. We can just give project-specific comments and questions to each one and be neutral in terms of a recommendation. I just saying, like, when I looked at the comments that were coming in the door in the last couple of days, it looked like Executive Suite was sort of pulling ahead, but I was just seeing if that's the case. And it sounds like maybe that's not quite the, if at all.
I'll jump in with maybe my 2 cents, and I'll just start by saying that I think that in terms of a back runner, for me that is Penrose. I think that I think their approach for affordability is fantastic. I think what doesn't work for me is the maintained ownership. So from out of state maintained ownership that gets rented locally, I think is a huge challenge. So that would be my back runner. I've shifted in terms of front runner from Executive Suite, as I mentioned last week, and I've shifted actually over towards DEW, and I just wanted to put my 2 cents in that space. I do think that DEW would have a decent amount of work to do on their actual designs and plans. I was uninspired by by the maps that they put forth. It seemed pretty vague. But that said, I think that they hit a middle of the road that actually might work nicely. More importantly than that, I took Gabe's comments last week about local developers and builders to heart. They are local. I think they're headquartered in Williston. And then on top of that, they have proven local developments. So I believe in Middlebury or East Middlebury, they've done a retirement community of more single-family home style. I was a little bit concerned that they were really focused on more municipal buildings like they've done for us in Montpelier. They developed the Taylor Street bus depot, and I believe it's 30 units of housing that's there. And I think that they are currently working on at least one of the developments that's up in Berlin next to the mall. So that's a big plus in my mind. It's like, okay, this is getting done. It's on the ground. It is they are building workforce housing in Berlin right now. Housing that we should be building in Montpelier in the future, currently, and should have been in the past. So that like holds a lot of water for me. In terms of Executive Suite, I think their designs are really lovely. Their words are really lovely. I think their proposal sort of hits the mark for a lot of folks that live in Montpelier. One of the reasons I think that they maybe jumped directly into their proposal is that it doesn't appear from my Google searches that they have a lot of experience with this type of development. And so there was not a lot to discuss when it came to that. So I guess my concern with Executive Suite is, can they do it? So if they got this land and this project, like could they deliver? And I'm feeling at the moment like I'm not so sure about that. It feels very idealistic, which I find myself at times latching onto. I love the idea of mixed use or different types of income, different size structures, different densities. But I'm a little bit anxious about their ability to deliver. So I think I'll leave my comments there. Well, the last thing I'll say is that I think Chinburg is an interesting idea as well. So I would say maybe not all that helpful, except I wanted to put some ideas out there and also say for sure Penrose is the 4th of 4 for me.
I'll add Penrose is my least favorable choice as well.
Mine too, for all the reasons that we've already talked about and Tim just mentioned again. I think I would want to see a more diverse group of housing up there.
Thanks, that's helpful. Just trying to, does it make sense for us to just go project by project? Outline some concerns or, just sort of, to Sean's point, I think there was some want to kind of do some pros and cons of different projects against or proposals against each other. I'm just trying to figure out like what's the most efficient way to do that. It seems to me that just sort of going project by project might be the best way to do it. I mean, we do have a lot of written commentary so far, which is helpful. And so I don't know that the discussion has to be super long, but I feel like a lot of folks have outlined a lot of the salient issues on either side of the coin for Executive Suite and Chinburg and DEW and Penrose. But with that in mind, I think what I'm also curious about is what sorts of questions we want the subcommittee to be asking the developers in the next phase of this process. So does it make sense to just kind of pick a proposal, pros, cons questions, and just walk through those things? And then if there is a want to, and I'll just say this, I am not wedded to making any sort of a particular recommendation up or down if we don't have to do that. But through this discussion, we might come to some consensus in terms of some kind of limited recommendation at the very least that we might want to make. And it might just be like, we're not too jazzed on Penrose. That might be that's it. So, but if that makes sense, I think should we just move to let's just start with Executive Suite. And folks have outlined a number of sort of pros and concerns, things that they're excited about, concerns that they have. I think given the the number of units, the mix of housing types, those discussions, if people have written that stuff down, I'm happy to incorporate that more fully into the letter that I have not finished, into those comments. But if there's anything else in terms of things we want to highlight with this project, anything that we really want to make sure we make clear?
Yeah, I am not clear based on my reading the proposal, their full concept of like the rentals and the apartments. I know that they had kind of in a footnote put an exchange that they had with Downstreet, and Downstreet was interested in maybe developing some duplexes, but whereas Penrose is like some of the proposals lean really heavily into apartments. I don't think I have a good understanding of what the apartments would look like or where there would be, if there'd be enough. They acknowledge them, but I'm missing that detail. And if it's only going to be 2 duplexes that's managed by Downstreet, like that is, I'd like to see more rental options than just that.
I agree. When I went through it again, I was surprised at how little information there was about the housing mix. Because I feel like last week when we were all looking at it, it was kind of impressive. But then once you're looking for the details, they weren't there. But maybe I missed it, but it seemed like they weren't there. I do appreciate that they put a lot of thought into how this community would be connected to the rest of Montpelier. And that I think that they benefit from having people on the ground here advising them. Like you could see, I think one of their maps included, future paths and roadways connecting to the Town Hill neighborhoods, connecting to East State Street. They thought about how it would connect to the bike path. And then, of course, what Tim mentioned last week about having the rec field still there with that kind of like cafe or like rec area. They put a lot of thought into how this is going to fit within Montpelier. Those are the parts that I'm excited about. I'm less excited about what Leah just mentioned. There's some specifics that aren't there. And again, maybe I didn't see it. I don't know if I didn't see it or what. But then also, like Tim was saying, it didn't seem, looking through the appendices on who was actually part of this project, it didn't seem clear that they had done this before, that any of the different parties had built kind of like an entire neighborhood from scratch before. So there is some risk, I think, in choosing them because we would be there the first time, Montpelier would be the first time that this group was doing something like this. So there is, it could go well or it could not go well, but there is risk. I think those are I'll pipe in again if I remember any of my other comments.
Another one of my questions is trying to look and see, because the executive suite had different concepts, 1A, 1B, 2, 3, trying to figure out those nuances between what makes them different. In all of them, though, they kind of still have that pedestrian village with those like granite sets. I honestly, one of my biggest questions is like, if there's no vehicular traffic kind of in this pedestrian village, what about the ambulance or the cop car, the Amazon driver or the pizza delivery person? There's just some like the logistics of how it works in the pedestrian village is a little unclear to me. And the other thing, sorry, I did prefer the executive suite, but there's just kind of some questions about how it would actually all piece together. But they sold me on the idea of what their vision is. The parking spaces is another big hurdle that it seems it's so aspirational that I don't know if it's practical to the way that our community like functions right now, or the way that Vermont functions with, the real need to kind of have cars, depending on if you're doing workforce housing, but then you're not allowing, sufficient parking spaces for workers to go to work. It just kind of seemed like a shortfall in the proposal as it stands now. So they called it a transportation demand management approach, a TMD approach. And that is something that seemed impractical to me. And I just think that there's not enough parking and not enough private parking. And the pedestrian village, again, I just have questions about cars, like the practicality of getting your pizza delivered to you in the pedestrian village. So
Yeah, and this is also a neighborhood that is, I mean, I think people in downtown Montpelier can get around without cars. But this neighborhood is going to be cut off from everything else pretty much. So if you want to go to the supermarket, most likely you're going to drive. This isn't an integrated community yet. So yeah, I agree that the lack of parking, I think is it like half a spot per dwelling?
it's one space for every 2 households in the pedestrian village. There's kind of 3 different sections. The pedestrian village has 1 for every 2 households. And then the cottage clusters and Eastwoods kind of average out to 1 space for every household, about I think it may be a little less than 1 space for every household. And I think the Eastwoods might even have some actual private parking. But the majority of it is these little clusters of parking spaces close by, or just actual parking lots. But still, even almost 1 space per household in the 2 other sections. It seems very aspirational, and they go into detail talking about how that could work, using different types of transportation and different infrastructure that kind of currently exists, but it seems impractical to me still.
That also kind of negates the benefit of having those rec fields there, because those of us, we keep talking about these rec fields because they really do draw the community together for people who have kids of a certain age. But we already fill that parking lot up currently with no housing nearby every Saturday, and even after school on throughout the week. If people going to those rec fields will also need somewhere to park, that's kind of, again, this is a community that's cut off pretty much from the rest of the city. So parking is needed. I don't like cars, but even I am acknowledging that there's going to be a need for parking there.
If I can dovetail an issue that you just raised, Maria, this sort of applies to all of the proposals with the exception of Chinburg, I guess, is given Chinburg is visioning 10,000 square feet of commercial space, given the location of the parcel, does this group feel like there needs to be some minimum amount of commercial space? I'm something like just a general store of some type, a cafe, something to sort of, to your point, if there is folks that do not have a car and need to get a loaf of bread, something like that. Should there be some sort of minimum commercial space envisioned as part of this development because of its location, or do we think that's not necessarily something that needs to be a part of the development?
I mean, I personally am excited about any proposal that has commercial and does mixed use development. After your comments a week ago, Aaron, about what is 10,000 feet too much? What I went and looked and said, how much is that? And it's about a quarter of an acre worth. And it's about the size of probably like Five Below up in Berlin. So it's not actually a huge amount of space. And ExecuSuite they do kind of wave their hand at the potential for commercial space, without saying it. The Chinburg proposal is very specific. 10,000 square feet. We don't know what. Somebody's going to come and, rent that space out. Whereas the ExecuSuite proposal is, well, maybe there'll be an elder daycare, maybe there'll be other things, but it's not clear where or how much. And I think it's reasonable that if you're planning a community where people aren't going to be driving, that somewhere to buy groceries would be nice to walk to.
I mean, they do mention a farm stand, which, yeah, it's not the same thing as, a market, a cafe. I'm looking at their website now, and I took some of their proposals that are color coded. When it says all public, I took that to mean kind of more commercial spaces. Does anybody know if, specifically right now I'm looking at concept 3, and they have a couple buildings that are all public, and one is Turtle Island, and one is where they identified the farm stand, and there's a couple sprinkled. So I'm wondering if they thought of it and it's not articulated in writing, but it is captured in some of the concept plans. Mike, do you know if I'm interpreting the all public identified buildings on the concept plan correctly, and assuming that these are the commercial spaces?
I'm not sure. I mean, from the written text part, version 3 didn't exist when they did their first proposal. So we now have a written version 3, which doesn't have, or we have a site plan for version 3, but we don't have the written text for that. So there are pieces, there are gaps missing now because we keep getting additional site plan versions. But I would think remaining public, that's probably what they meant because of the fact that they put the farm stand. If they didn't, the public is, well, the city owns it and the city's public. So the city owns the Turtle Island building. That makes sense to label that as public because we own it. But I wouldn't think the city would be owning the farm stand. So that probably indicates they were meaning that those are more commercial. But that would be just my interpretation based on what you were describing.
I guess that would be a question as well then for ExecuSuite, is sussing out, do they have actual commercial spaces set aside, or are we just assuming that's what the concept, one of the concept, or sorry, I keep calling concept plan, one of the site plans shows.
Sure, thanks. And I just wanted to circle back, like the question that I'm posing to the group right now is do we want to advocate for the integration of some commercial space as part of whatever development occurs on that site?
I mean, I would like to. I think it, kind of like the general store, like the corner store, these are gathering places for people in a community. And then you think of like the meadows, and they have, Birch Grove, I think being able to walk to a nearby amenity is what we should be aiming for. Like throughout the world, but also in this little community,
And I think I totally agree. And I think we can point to the city plan where it talks about supporting and growing Montpelier businesses. So Yes, for all the reasons, including the one that we say in our city plan that we should be supporting and growing.
Rowan, Gabe, Tim? Thoughts? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could go either way, but I'm feeling convinced. I think that some minimal amount of commercial is a good thing.
I think third spaces have been shown to be pretty important to community experience, and I know that was the zoning that we laid out allowed for that. So yeah, I'm in support of that.
Agreed.
Actually, I like that framing a lot. Gabe, like third space. Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, Rowan. All right, so do we have any more sort of questions, concerns, anything that we want to highlight for executive suite?
I just want to say I love the vision of this. I love it so much. They sold me. It is an exciting proposal to think about. That's all.
Eva, Eva Scheckman, you got your hand raised?
Yes. Oh, God.
Hold on.
How do I?
Usually it's because you had the microphone and the speakers. Might have to turn down your speaker a little bit.
How's that?
Much
Can you
better.
hear me?
Great.
Thanks.
Now I can't hear you.
Okay, we can't hear you.
Okay. I'm going to turn down the speaker, but then I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm turning down my speaker. Put up your thumb if you can hear me. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. All right. So first, I just want to say thank you all for, sussing out, the pros and cons. And I just heard mention, and I sent a comment, I don't know if you can see it or not, about a farm stand. I guess that was something that jumped out at me in the description that I saw from Executive Suite. And I'm guessing that somebody told them about the farm stand that was hosted by Feast Farm at the senior center when Feast Farm was actually running as a farm, which it didn't last year because there wasn't any funding in 2025. They're hoping to get funding back. But historically, Feast Farm had a farm stand in downtown Montpelier at the senior center. And so I'm guessing that farm stand would not be commercial, that it would be an extension of Feast Farm, which is when the funding, when there's grant funding available again for a farm manager, which hopefully there will be, Feast Farm will be able to grow food for the senior activity for the Meals on Wheels program at the senior center, and also the Montpelier Food Pantry. That's primarily what they were growing food for over at Three Rivers before the 2023 flood, and then at Country Club property after in 2024. So this is just to answer that question about like the farm stand. I'm really excited about there being food grown in the middle of this neighborhood. That would just be like incredible. And all the programming that could happen that's incorporated into city planning and the neighborhood and everything. There are other gardens that are already there. But that's a whole long other thing. I just wanted to pipe in about that in case you all weren't aware of those connections. And I just really appreciate that you're all thinking about all the details. Like, hey, if there aren't details from Executive Suite about the rental housing, that's concerning. If you all can't find that detail, where, you know, where's it going to come from? You can't say yes to something you don't know, right? Along with everything else. And I agree that the best use of that land is mixed use, not on one end of the scale or the other end. So thank you for your time. I'm gonna put my mute back on.
Great. Thank you so much, Eva. Appreciate your comments. Are we set with discussing Executive Suite, or can we move on to another developer, another proposal? All right, let's move on to Chimberg. Does that work for folks? Okay. So again, I guess the real question is, I mean, we have written comments from folks. It's helpful. I will try to synthesize those as best I can, put those into the comment letter. Is there anything else people want to discuss? Pros, cons, concerns, questions? I think again, the questions for the developers is probably going to be the most helpful for the subcommittee. So,
I guess the question is, and maybe this is reiterating what I already put in my comments, but they've got to have recreation space there, and you know, how can they rework their plan to include that without losing units? Because one of the nice things about this proposal is the density of it. There's a lot of Country Club Road left to work with after if Chinberg's proposal gets built. Can they increase the height of the apartment buildings to 5 stories to make up for losing a couple of them? That's my biggest issue with them.
Yeah, I think that's a good question as well. I was chatting with friends this weekend, and someone was saying, well, maybe Chinberg has really done their due diligence here and figured out that for actually developing housing units, that it really pencils out to use that flat space for the housing, and that the rest of the property will add either unknowns or challenges in terms of grading and drainage to build higher density buildings. So I just wanted to put that out there. And at the same time, I completely agree with you, Sean. So I think a question back to them is, how can we maintain some recreational fields and other opportunities?
I feel like I'm of 2 minds about the rec fields. I mean, I have a kid who goes there, but is that the best use of flat land outside the floodplain? You know, like we keep talking about like, what do we prioritize? Do we prioritize housing or soccer fields? And that seems like we could be using low-lying areas for fields and letting them get flooded as part of like a flood management plan. But then I also, Tim, I think less so about like the importance of this space to my children. I think it's this idea of maintaining a connection to that neighborhood to me is really important. So if you have this constant influx of the community to this neighborhood daily or weekly, I think that is really important, you know, and I think it keeps it from being this kind of like separate off neighborhood that people don't really know exists even because there's only like one road in, one road out. So that's the part of it that um, I don't know. So I don't think that soccer fields are more important than housing, but I do think having this draw is an important part of that community. So I don't know. I'm kind of like of two minds about it. I don't really know where I fall on that topic. Chinburg, though, I'm really happy with those townhomes you got. Like there's like alleys. Like it's just like people who have thought about this type of planning and having grown up in a row home, they are so practical for people who, you know, don't have a lot of means to spend on landscaping, who don't want to spend time on landscaping. You know, it's really nice to have a little postage stamp front yard. And for people who are older, I mean, having like a quarter acre is actually a lot of land to take care of when after you reach a certain age, and it's expensive. I love these townhomes. So that is what I really like about Chinburg. And I like that they have done this before. I mean, they haven't done it in Vermont, but they've done it in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Again, like going back to Executive Suite, I do feel like it's risky to pick them because they haven't actually done this before. Chinburg has, and they've listed out, you know, all of the contractors and everyone that they're going to be working with. They seem to know how a job like this gets done, which makes me hopeful that it would actually be feasible. That's my.
Anyone else?
Yes, and I don't like that playground surrounded by like in the actual plans, for some reason the play space is like between parking lots as opposed to being in that large green in the center of the community. I'm not sure why they added a play space like right in the weirdo corner. But I also do like that green area, especially for like stormwater runoff. Like I feel like it seems like it would be like a really pleasant community.
I mean, is that play space just adjacent to Turtle Island? Is that what the existing building and the play space? Because that makes sense to me. Then if there's a play space adjacent, but yes, not in theory, not having.
But there's like a weird thing that happens when you have a play space next to a daycare, because children who don't go to that like I'm not sure, I think it's a public play space, so I don't think it's related to Turtle Island, you know. So I don't think it's just like I don't think it's only for Turtle Island's use. But it is in a weird location to me. If you're like an actual parent walking around with a kid in a stroller, like having to navigate to like through the parking lots, then over to this thing seems like weird planning.
Is there a question you want to ask them about that?
I mean, it could be as simple as why isn't the play space in the common green area?
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
like where it should be.
One other thing that I could say that I do appreciate about Chinburg is the possibility of recreation area or development being developed a little bit further up. I think it's just being able to plan for the future and allow that possibility, I think, is really helpful and hopeful, and it can continue to expand. And as it becomes more connected to downtown Montpelier, that might be a good place for expansion and for getting between downtown and this neighborhood.
Maria, you have me stumped with your of two minds. I'm totally with you. The way that you outlined it, I agree with everything you said in the dilemma.
Like, why can't we have all the things? We could just have everything. That'd be great.
Sean, were you pointing to Chinburg earlier as not being the best on affordability? Is that something you mentioned or no?
Leah mentioned that briefly.
Yes, I have that in my notes, at least number of affordable units, but I don't know. I have a lot of notes everywhere, and
Yeah. No, I just wanted to bring that back up.
Reference it. So let's not, unless somebody can fact check me right here, right now. Let's not say that.
I think that's what I'm seeing is what you it was 5 to 15% of apartments affordable less than or equal to 80% AMI. 10% of ownership units affordable less than or equal to 150% AMI. That's what I'm seeing as this in summary. Which, that could be a challenge as like for our city is less units on the affordability side.
Yeah,
but I think all of the positives that have been mentioned, I think are really great and puts this proposal pretty far forward.
They seem to be, in terms of like affordable units, they seem to be calibrating it to meet CHIP requirements, right?
Okay.
That you can pay off your TIF bond with what they're proposing.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Okay, anything else with respect to Chinburg? All right, DEW.
I was thinking, along the lines of what Tim was saying at the beginning of the meeting, that I had kind of written DEW off because I don't think it's a great use of the space. But I do agree with Tim that I'm sure it's practical. I'm sure that they could build that and that they could make their plan come to fruition. But it is nice that they're a local crew. But they would have to really rework, I think, the design in my mind to make me get on board. You
addressed what?
I think that so Chinburg and Execu Suite look like neighborhoods. You could conceivably look at those plans and say, I could live there and I could walk around them and I would see my neighbors. And DEW has 3 apartment buildings that get plopped down in the middle of a field on in a circle, kind of, and then off to their medium density, very far away. Well, not very far away, but separated, as opposed to a walkable neighborhood feel.
Yeah, that was my takeaway too. It's like, hey, you people in apartments, you go over here. Hey, single family homes, we're going to stick you over here. And it's not integrated. And I think what we keep saying is that we want mixed development, but I don't think we mean like mixed and separate development. I think we mean mixed and integrated development. I'm really, I'm curious, Gabe, what you have to say, because I, so I had also written them off like Sean. But then Tim piping up, I'm wondering if they are just being more realistic than the other developers, because they're they're based in Vermont and they kind of know how things work, and do they just have kind of a better calculus of what they can actually accomplish?
I mean, I think if you drive up to South Burlington and you drive around Farrell Street, you're going to see a bunch of stuff that looks exactly like that proposal because they know that they can build that because they build it, right? So I think that's kind of what we're looking at is stuff that they know how to do. And the thing that again, in my matrix, which I know we've kind of dumped at this point, but just the idea to me inside the city plan of helping and assisting with projects that developers kind of need the assistance. We don't need to help people with projects they would do commercially on their own, right? We need to help them in ways that, that could be helped. And I feel like it brings into whatever their workforce is. I mean, it's going to put a lot of people in central Vermont will end up on DEW payrolls, right? I mean, so those people, that's part in my factoring. It's like, look, we're going to have a bunch of local people that are going to be working on projects that are local because they're local and they're going to have those networks and they're going to be able to plug in there. So I agree with them being sort of uninspiring. In my scoring, they were number 2. And so, and like we could debate, like Tim Heaney, I don't know exactly his role in the other project, but like he built the last neighborhood. He came in and told us he's the last guy that built a neighborhood in Montpelier, and it's a bunch of townhomes, and it's kind of cool. It's not like as picturesque as the executive suite is now, but like he has done stuff, and he's a local guy with a lot of real estate experience. So anyway, that ship has sailed. We've already talked about those guys, but I do think the DEW, what they're showing is what they know they can do. I'm sure if we gave them feedback that like, hey, we'd like some more original ideas, we'd like something that sort of blends more with the aesthetic in Montpelier, I'm sure they could come back with something a little different.
It's funny because I described this to somebody as Murray Hill. And not as a positive. Not that like Murray Hill's fine. I think it's underutilized in its current format.
Yes, and it's been built. I think like at the end of the day, we want this project to pencil out in a way that we can actually have housing here in what, 2030, 2032?
30.
Well, some of these say 2032, so so I think there's something to be said for, at times, boring and practical. Because oftentimes boring and practical can get done. So for me, it's a bit of a balance. Would I love a more neighborhood feel to their proposal? Absolutely, 100%. Do I want them to build out their plans a little bit more? Yes. I would like to see more units as well. They're the smallest. I think total units is 249 for DEW compared to Executive Suite is at 340, and Chinburg and Penrose are in between. So is there an opportunity? My question for them would be to DEW. First and foremost, is there an opportunity to expand? A very simple question. Could they expand their proposal for more units? Yeah. So at the end of the day, I think I'm balancing sort of the ideal neighborhood feel and then also what can we get done in the next 4 years.
I think it is hard for us to gauge some of the practicality, like a lot of the number, like, oh, first of all, even if I had the numbers in front of me, I would say that this doesn't look like anything to me. Uh, so that part is maybe somebody else's responsibility, is to gauge the financial feasibility of these projects. And obviously that's a huge factor. And maybe that carries more weight than with the with city council members making this decision than, you know, our aesthetic and planning weight.
I think that's a good point, so how much of a consideration should we be putting towards that? And it's in a black box to us. We have no access to it. So should we, as a commission, then be focused on what we see in these pages, which is what we have access to, or should we be sort of guessing about the other considerations, the financials, for instance?
Right. And so I basically weighted the aesthetic and plan type aspects other than financial feasibility.
That makes sense.
Right. Like our lane is planning. And so we're kind of looking at it from a planning perspective. And I assume that there's other people looking at it from the financial perspective. But DEW's plan also doesn't include any commercial, which is, you know, something that we've been talking about. I feel like if they could just take their plan and be more creative with it, you know, like we could have everything we want, just like we keep saying, we want everything. But if they just moved the buildings from these kind of like silos, and then it just seems like a lack of creativity, I think, and a lack of understanding of what this community wants out of a city. I'm not very inspired by the South Burlington, I don't know, construction. Like it seems very like what we don't kind of want here, you know, like major arterials and then access, like a 1-point access to a subdivision with identical housing is very uninspiring to me.
You know, I'll just say very quickly, one of the things that struck me about the DEW and the Penrose projects was, and to some degree, Chinbrook, but less degree, is that those projects, they feel like they are, in my mind, I am not a professional planner. I'm just a volunteer. I do not have an architecture degree. I don't understand these concepts that well, but it felt like the layout of Penrose and DEW was more suited for kind of an urban/suburban environment that would have more supporting kind of infrastructure around it. Like the idea being that there would be like the DEW design makes sense to me. Like if there's a Chipotle 2 blocks down the road, it's just off the, you know, that's the only way I can kind of describe it. And Penrose sort of had the same feel to it. Was if there's sort of it felt like the layout assumed that there was a bunch of supporting infrastructure nearby that the development itself didn't have to deal with. And I think to Marie's point earlier, is this feels like, I'm not saying that Country Club Road is an island, but it will be sort of separate and apart from every other kind of part of the city, even if there is an eventual connection to Stevens Pasture or whatnot. It is still kind of be out there. And that's, I think, I felt like a lot of the thing that I was attracted to the executive suite thing is just that it had an organic neighborhood, almost like a small village feel to it that makes sense where it's going to be located. And so I don't know if other folks sort of shared that concern. I don't know how much weight we put on that, but I guess it's a way of me asking the question to the group: would this group feel comfortable if one of the comments and questions that we posed to DEW, which is just like, frankly, this is just stale, you know, and we like the kind of nuts and bolts and the mechanics of it as best we understand it, but it just seems stale to us. Is there a way for you to integrate some mixed use development in there to create and to sort of maybe do some things to create a less sterile kind of approach? And that's the only way I can the only way I could describe the DEW thing. And like, I take everybody's point about what's possible, what's feasible, but I also feel like we could add, I don't think there's no downside in asking to see if they can sort of spice this up. Like, and, you know, my sense is that in the development world, when you spice things up, it adds costs, and that's something that the finance folks have to be more concerned about than we are. And that there might just be an intersection between cost and what we see as best embodying our planning priorities. So. I'm glad I stopped the conversation. So.
I think that's a fair question to ask back to them. I think that's very direct. It addresses our concern and see if they would have an answer.
Yeah, and I just want to confirm that if we have that concern, I mean, I can massage the language a bit to make it, less blunt, but
I mean,
even.
I'm sorry, Aaron, I cut you off. What were you saying at the end?
Nothing important.
I'm kind of torn at the balance of, so many apartments versus owner occupied options. And my bias and my understanding of what Montpelier citizens have at least informally surveyed for is that they want more owner occupied options. And my understanding of do is that it really leans heavily into these apartment buildings, and it provides a lot of apartment housing, and that I want not just a lot of apartment housing. So I'll put that out there.
I also wasn't clear looking at both the DEW and Chinburg I think each of them had over 200 apartment units or not apartment rental units. And I wasn't sure, I don't know if you guys read more closely and figured out whether they are planning on operating those rentals. So it's almost like they are giving us a Penrose and then adding, 30 units of single family home. But like they're really going to be making money from those rental units into the future. Did you guys get a sense of that?
I don't remember.
Okay. I'm also frustrated that the apartment blocks are all rentals. I don't know why. Maybe there's isn't a market for that kind of condo unit in Vermont, but I wish people could buy apartments here.
Up at Cambria Rising, which is an awesome development up in Burlington, there's plenty of condos that are being sold as part of that.
I'm looking at DEW right now, or DEW, page 71 of their proposal. It says Downstreet will own and permanently manage the 3 high-density buildings. Before it says DEW Properties and Downstreet will jointly ensure high-quality ownership and property management across the site. Downstreet will own and permanently manage the 3 high-density buildings. DEW Properties will own and manage the medium-density buildings and low-density homes, with select units being included for ownership and/or incorporated into Downstreet's shared equity homebuyer program. So I do like how integrated Downstreet would be with the apartments. Great.
Anything else with respect to DEW? Okay. Last but certainly not least, Penrose. Can I ask a quick sort of threshold question of the group? While there is uncertainty about the front runners, can we agree that Penrose is the least supportive, but from the community? That is the the sense that I've been getting so far.
Yeah, that's a yes for me.
Okay. Got a lot of floating thumbs in here all of a sudden. Okay. So concerns, comments, questions? Or
I'm wondering if it's reasonable for us to put forth instead of I don't know what's most useful for the subcommittee. Is it most useful that we actually rank these 1 through 4, or is it most useful that we pick and choose what we like about the proposals and have them sort of whittle it down?
I mean, I really think, if this is my personal view, I feel like things are so not fleshed out at this point. It's the questions that we can help them pose to the developers so that they can get a better sense of these things. And what I'm thinking right now is I don't know that we're going to be able to rank this 1 through 4, but I think it sounds like we could say we find real merit in these 3 proposals. You know, Penrose lags behind them. That's not to say that they couldn't, have value, but as it stands now, here's the concerns that we have with all these things. And more importantly, here are the questions that we have as we've thought about this, doing it through the lens of like the city plan.
Yeah, I really like that approach. I think that, starting with our methodology and our basically the guiding principles for this particular exercise, here are questions back to the developer. I think that will likely be the most helpful for the subcommittee as they move forward.
Yeah, and what I was like before when I started drafting this, and part of the reason why I got bogged down very quickly was I was trying to synthesize things, and I was thinking about a ranking system, and that just suddenly got ground to a halt. But I have a better sense of how I think we can frame this stuff up, and the idea would be each proposal specific comment would just be like, here are the kind of the 30,000 foot like things we really enjoyed about this. Here are some big picture concerns, but more importantly, here's some, to the extent that we get into the weeds on a proposal that is only a few pages thick, here are the things that we'd like to see fleshed out in order to help you make better decisions about whether or not this is a viable and desirable thing. But these are the things we're thinking about as the planning commission, not thinking about dollars and cents. And so
I like that approach a lot, personally.
yeah. So with that,
do we have to rank Penrose? Can we say that we uniformly have dismissed Penrose?
Yeah, I think we can say that they lag behind. I do think that it'd be helpful for us to provide whatever constructive feedback and questions they might ask them, because they're gonna sit down with them. And so
yeah,
again, but I'm with you. I'm not saying I'm strongly adverse to it, but I think Gage said it best in his comments, which this just seems like an apartment, development that's just plopped down, in Montpelier. And I don't know that that's consistent with any of the things that we've been talking about tonight, and certainly, in many meetings before this. So.
Right. It feels like this would have the hardest time. Like their model just is not consistent with what we're looking for. So it would have the hardest time sitting down and be like, oh, what about you change this? Yeah, it would require changing their entire model.
I mean, and if that's the comment we want to present to them, it's just like, we just don't see this development as proposed to be consistent with, all these goals that we've laid out, like using our methodology, and I can probably craft some broad language, or we could just be dismissive and just say, we don't recommend that you proceed with Penrose because, we didn't consider Penrose because we just didn't feel like it was, again, consistent with the city's planning goals. My concern with that is that there may be folks on the subcommittee or in city council that disagree, that say, this is exactly what we need. We've been hearing people clamoring for, affordable rentals. And, that can be the first phase in a broader development sort of plan across the city. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case, but it could happen. So I'm just saying, like, to the extent that this is our one shot at this stage to sort of say, here's our concerns and voice them. And
Aaron, I think it would be fair to say, I think what we kept saying is that this plan doesn't include a mix of housing and housing types. It doesn't at all include a mix of rental versus owner occupied. I think the use of, I question how they have planned the actual plan. All of the parking is in front of each house, which is kind of goes against like our actual zoning code, which does not allow front yard parking. And so there's this lack of, I think it feeds this lack of community, having a car several feet in front of your house instead of like a porch, So I think there are all of these elements that kind of make it feels like some like exurban planned community in like way out in Maryland that I used to, that you would come across. It doesn't feel like something that happens in Vermont, like where you value being able to walk down your street and see your neighbors. I would question why they haven't thought more creatively about parking location. And their entire plan is like this, where there's just parking spots right in front of each building. And not like on-street parking. It's like basically each building is on its own parking lot.
And I will just say, like, to your point, Country Club Road is about as exurban as it gets in Montpelier. So.
It's true, but we're trying to avoid that through planning,
The other thing that Penrose lacks that we wanted to promote is the commercial space. So it would be good to have Penrose to see some commercial space in there. I do appreciate how it is that they emphasize the affordability of their apartments, but it's not just that it's all apartments. It's that that Penrose retains the long-term ownership of those apartments was another thing that I did not like about their model.
Yep. I think that's shared by a number of us. Okay, so, well, is there anything else we want to say about that? Or we? Okay. So here's what I'll do, is I've been trying to take notes as best I can. I think I have a good sense of people's concerns and questions and whatnot. I need to continue with this document, this letter, and I think I have a good sense of how to frame it up. I want to run a couple of things by you folks. Number one is what I'd like to frame it is to say, we see basically, I'll figure out how to frame this up, but basically we see real value in 3 of the 4 proposals, Penrose being the outlier. And, so we really would hope that the subcommittee focuses on those 3 first and foremost, if possible. Here are sort of the broad attributes that we like to see. It's like the retention of recreation space, mixed use space built in as best we can, ways to integrate a sort of community, and that's sort of a signal to DEW, like make it less stale. But then do project specific, sort of pros and cons, high level, and then the questions, to the extent that I think I've written them down as best I can, incorporate those into each one. I will do that tonight, and you will either get something later tonight or first thing in the morning, because we've got to get these off to these folks pretty soon. We're going to be late. That's just the way that goes. I think we'll still get, they'll still look at this stuff. I'm not worried about that. The other question, so does that format make sense to this group?
Okay, and the reason why I asked that question is that my understanding of the open meeting laws is that we can't use a Google document to edit this document. Like it has to be like, I send you all a draft and you guys can send stuff back to me, but we have to be sending, like, it's just going to be like, it's 1995, right? Like we're sending drafts back and forth. I'd like to keep that to a minimum for obvious reasons. So unfortunately, we can't use like a Google Doc and just do red line edits. So I'll do the best I can to sort of reflect the things that have been discussed here, and hopefully that works. So I'll send that to you folks, and if anybody has like burning red line edits or whatnot, we can do that. But I'll try to make it so that it's efficient as possible. The other thing, and this is not quite as big, is there anybody? I think this is an opportunity for if someone here on the commission wants to really be kind of a point person on the planning commission if there's any sort of opportunities to liaison with the CCR subcommittee or the city council with respect to this development going forward. This would be a good opportunity for that person to be the signatory on this letter. Like I'm happy to ghostwrite it if somebody wants to have their signature attached to it. Because then it's a good sort of entree to become a contact person for that. So just think about that. You have to decide on it. Or if if folks are adverse to there being a single signatory, we could just sign it as we can just say the planning commission. So it's up to you folks. But again, I think I'm trying to figure out ways for folks to start getting plugged into other areas of, like the municipal goings on, like, we're starting to talk to the housing committee more often. I think there's going to be more opportunities to speak to the folks that are working on this development. So if there's any want for somebody to really stay abreast of this, let me know. And I think this will be a good way to sort of create that connection for those folks if somebody wants to do that. But in the meantime, let me draft this letter tonight. I'll get it off to you again, hopefully later tonight. If not, it'll be early in the morning. So, but I don't think it'll take too long.
Thank you, Aaron, for taking that on and for pulling together this meeting. I think it was really fruitful.
Yeah, no, again, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for the time. Like I really, it's really nice that everybody is willing to sacrifice yet another Monday evening. So I'll let you all go. And I think we have a meeting next week, so we'll see you then.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, and just keep your eye on your inboxes, and we'll do that. And so again, just to be clear, like if you have any red lines, think long and hard about it. I think I'd like it to be like a minimal number of drafts going back and forth as possible, clogging up our inboxes and that. And I can almost guarantee there's going to be typographical errors and whatever I send you. So somebody can take a stab at cleaning those up for sure. But just in terms of substantive things, I just hope that everybody thinks long and hard before they start making big structural changes to it. Because again, we can't just work off the Google document. So. Great. Anything else? I'm looking for one single motion tonight, which is.
I'm going to motion to adjourn.
Great. We have a second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Leah. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. You're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron. This was a great meeting.